Welcome to the We Win Injury Law podcast. I'm Tyler Todd, your host, sitting here with my co-host, Jaron the Snow Canyon Man Sandberg. Good morning.
Good morning, Tyler.
And good afternoon to everybody.
To all the defense attorneys, good afternoon. No, just kidding.
Yeah, to all you defense adjusters and defense lawyers, good afternoon. Maybe they do or don't even listen, but if they do, we're kidding.
Yeah.
Kind of.
A little bit.
All right, you guys, look, there's been a lot of stuff since our last podcast have been happening in some of these crazy, big cases around the country. Most notably, Bryan Kohberger, the plea deal around the world.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we were just talking about this before we came on the podcast. There was a weird, internet conspiracy going around trying to even suggest that maybe two of the surviving victims, because they're victims, right? And they weren't murdered and they weren't killed, and
they'll live with that.
And they'll live with that forever. Some survivor's guilt and all those things. But there was some weird conspiracy going around that they might even had some involvement in the murders. So, I mean, how do you feel about the plea deal?
I mean, it's that mixed bag, right? On the one hand, you're, as an attorney, as a prosecutor, you just got 4 convictions, life sentences.
So if you're not up to date on the Bryan Kohberger Idaho 4 murders, he just pled guilty to 4 murder charges. No, and he didn't plead no contest. He pled guilty.
Yep.
And I think he entered that deal, obviously, with probably from his attorney's perspective and his self-preservation, because he pled guilty with the life sentencing consecutively, meaning they run consecutively. There's no chance of parole. He's not getting off, not getting out of jail, but they took off the death penalty.
What do you think about that? I mean, I almost feel like if I would rather get the death penalty than spend the rest of my life in prison.
I mean, how old is Bryan Kohberger?
He looks young. I mean, he looks like mid-20s.
How old is he? Because that's a good question. What would you do? Y'all, what would you do? I mean, first of all, hopefully no one's ever going to kill anybody, another human being. So what he did was heinous and disgusting and all the things. He's 30. So Bryan Kohberger's 30 years old. In our civil world, we do a lot of stuff with life expectancies and tables and whatnot when we're talking about future damages and life care plans and different things for our clients. I think the average life expectancy of an adult white male, I want to say is 78 right now.
Yeah.
Somewhere between 74 and 78. So.
Well, and it makes you wonder if someone's getting 3 square meals a day, plenty of lazy sleep time. He's not going to have to work hard necessarily in prison.
He won't have to work very hard. It's pretty safe, clean environment.
For some of those family members, they hope he lives a long life.
Relatively safe, knowing he might get shanked. I don't know.
My guess is he's the type of person. My guess is they're going to put him in a solitary maximum security type.
And supervision and maybe, yeah. I don't know. I mean, so yeah, to answer your question, that sounds, so if he's 30 years old, let's say 75, let's just say 75, that's what, another 45 years of life expectancy?
Yeah.
Presumably he'll make it because you're eliminating all those risks, right, of death.
Yeah.
Except for disease.
Yeah, he's not going to get,
unless he does get shanked or drops a soap or something.
But it seems like these, well, and because he won't go to the super max one that's for federal crimes, right? So he's not going to be in there with the Kaczynski or any of, the Unabomber.
He's going to be in state.
He'll be at some maximum security state prison.
For Idaho.
Because in Utah, we just have basically the one main prison, and then there's Gunnison that's kind of an offshoot, but.
Right. So then what do you got? Who do you got?
So in Idaho, what is it?
Prison?
Boise, somewhere around Boise. I don't even know. I don't know enough where he's going to be doing it, but presumably he's going to be in a portion of that prison that's the maximum security for it.
I mean, I can only give you my experience about my day in jail in Idaho.
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned.
This is the Pocatello one.
This is Rexburg, Idaho. Yeah. He's going to drink a lot of Kool-Aid and eat some hot dogs.
Well, you know what? So didn't Ted Bundy escape from an Idaho jail? Wasn't that part of it?
I don't know.
I think it was, I swear it was an Idaho. It might have been Wyoming, but someone had picked him up. He had outstanding warrants and he had escaped out of their little jail system. maybe Idaho's not the place we want this guy.
Yeah, so who knows? So, I mean, that's the question. So, to our listeners, viewers, wherever you are listening to your podcast, the question that we want to kind of throw out there as we're kind of talking about some of the legal parameters and some of the things from a legal perspective on this deal was the confession about accountability or like legal strategy. And we have practiced criminal defense in the past, even though our practice area is pure personal injury today, and it's been for the last several years. Strategy or accountability?
Strategy, 100%. My guess is this deal has been on the table for a while. They make it sound like this was presented last minute. My guess is some form of this has been informally presented and it was rejected, and it was finally like his defense attorneys talking him into this type of deal. I don't see this being, barring that there was some other major thing that we don't know about that they thought could confuse the jury, or my guess is this, this to the prosecution is a great deal. You get a conviction. You don't waste all the money and time on trial, the security costs for the state of Idaho. I mean, there's a lot that goes into a trial.
You mean like 30 days of trial in Karen Reed?
At least, right? This is a civil trial. I don't know how long this trial was expected to go, but some of these more serious criminal cases, my guess this would have been they'd have put 9 or whatever it is in Idaho.
No, I'm saying the Karen Reed trial went 30 days.
I know.
So here we have four
separate
individual
gruesome
victims.
Facts.
Well, decedents.
You're putting the jury, and again, not just putting the family through that trauma again, but you're also putting whoever the selected jurors would have had to. I mean, every gruesome detail. I mean, think about like your own mother, right? Would have probably be a good person to be unbiased on a jury, and yet would you ever want them to have to sit through this type of trial? No,
you would never.
You would never wish that on anyone,
and you certainly wouldn't want to put the family through it. So I mean, I'm with
now,
you.
Me or you, to sit on that jury and convict some murderer, sure, maybe we could take it, but I just think the type of jurors it seems like get on some of these cases, you wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No, so here we are. I mean, obviously, it took place in November of 2022, the 4 murders in Idaho.
Yeah,
and he was arrested in December 30th of 2022. So here we are, what, 2.5 years later? So, I mean, he's been in jail for those 2.5 years. Obviously, the families have been there. So let me back up, just kind of take it 2 steps backwards. And we'll keep talking about strategy versus accountability. But there has been some videos and posts about TikTok videos and other things about the different reaction from the families.
Yeah, it seems like it's split.
So some of the families, I think, are all for the deal.
Yeah, the ones that I'm 100% in favor of the deal.
Right. And then there are some other of the families that are not in favor.
Yeah, the one wouldn't even go into the courthouse to hear it. And felt like it was a betrayal.
Right. Of justice.
Yeah.
So, and I think even the judge was kind of worried about the national maybe backlash to some degree. So even the judge kind of admonished from the bench. I don't know who he was admonishing, listeners, the families, who knows. He doesn't have the ability. The judge, the judicial system doesn't have the ability to dictate what the prosecutors file.
Yeah.
They have no role in that. The judge just does what he does or she does, and that's hopefully rule from the bench and govern, like follow the rules of civil procedure, follow the law. And if it's a jury trial, make sure that the jury's doing what they're supposed to be doing, that the lawyers are doing or using evidence that's admissible, sustaining or objecting to or overruling objections. So,
but in this situation, the judge is more of a rubber stamp on the plea deal, making sure that there's nothing that's like violent. But the judge doesn't have the ability to, because one of them called on the judge to reject the plea deal. It's not like the judge can just say, well, I don't like this deal.
Well, the judge does have the ability to reject a deal in the event there's like a miscarriage of justice.
And miscarriage of justice, I worry, is misleading. Like if it violates the law, the judge clearly can reject it. But he doesn't have the ability to say like, no, like I want a harsher penalty.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, but the judge can also then determine, the judge also has the decision and the power making to reject the sentence.
He can reject the sentence.
Well, essentially the deal, if you will.
He can reject the sentencing, and most of the time written into these agreements, because we've seen these, where it will say the judge is not bound at sentencing to follow through.
Correct.
This is just what the prosecution's recommended. my understanding of this specific case is the way that this is structured, the judge couldn't then put back on the table the death penalty.
No. But the judge doesn't have to accept the deal.
Yeah. There is some discretion there,
So,
especially if it violates the law.
So there is some level of like what's going to happen at sentencing, because he's not entirely bound to accept the deal.
Yeah.
Now, most judges do,
Yep.
and most judges will accept plea deals that are agreed to upon by a prosecutor and a defense lawyer. That's pretty typical. But we've also seen in our years of doing this where the judge has not accepted it.
One of my
and everyone sitting at the desk kind of stunned, like, wait, what?
Yeah, I'll tell you one of my favorite ones that I had, and luckily this wasn't on a big case, but we had a client that it was a first offense DUI. The minimum recommended at the time was a 48-hour stay in jail, and a lot of times the prosecution kind of waived that, and they could do community service in lieu of going to jail. And by the time you get to sentencing, just like in this case, it's not normally 2.5 years, but sometimes our clients have already gone through a sobriety program, and there was other reasons for them to get the judge to recommend the 48 hours be done in lieu of community service. And the case right before mine was someone had died as a result of a DUI, but they couldn't prove the DUI because they couldn't find it was a hit and run. Someone had died. And so I sat through this like 3-hour sentencing where all these victims' families got up. And then I'm the next person to stand up.
Present your agreement.
And this was retired Judge Westfall, and they're presenting. Well, the prosecution's agreed to, and I knew before I even said it. And my client's standing there, and I already told him, like, "You're cooked. This is not
good.
You're gonna spend a weekend in jail. It is what it is."
You should give him a T-shirt. You're cooked.
Yeah, you're cooked. We're going to make those T-shirts. But that was the context, right? So sometimes sentencing can go very off the rails depending on, and there's been other ones that people see these sentencing hearings, if there's not a lot presented, it could go very differently. But
right.
This one, yeah, if there was ability for the judge to give him more than that 48 hours, I think he'd have given my client that more than that. But
you're right. And I think what people don't understand, which is totally fair, judges are human. And they are influenced by the facts of the case, the egregiousness of the case. They're influenced by the sincerity or the lack of, or the accountability that's taken by the defendant. There's a number of things that are factors the judge's decision on to whether accept it or not. Now, the legal standards have to be met, and that's fine. Yeah. But if they feel like the sentencing agreement or the terms of the agreement are a little too light, they can add to it.
Yeah.
They can add to it. So,
well, tell me this. One other thing I wanted to bring up that I've just been thinking about this case, because I look at, like, our small community. We have, I don't know how many county prosecutors. We've met a lot of them over the years. What, eight maybe prosecutors, 10?
Somewhere in there, yeah.
And there might be some that do civil stuff for the county as well that we might not know. But so if this happened right here in our community, those 8, they've never dealt with anything to this level of media scrutiny. And
well, that's not. I mean, yes and no. I mean, we've had
some big cases, but I'm just saying, like,
they've had like the Warren Jeffs trial. That had some major national media years ago.
But this is like a serial killer type murder case.
No, I know. But recently we had the Frankie.
Yeah, Ruby Frankie
trial. That was ended up, I think, in a plea deal as well. But I mean, let's give some credit where credit's due. They've had some.
My goal wasn't to say that, but this isn't like the downtown LA county attorney's office that has the head attorney the county attorney can then go select, like, hey, let's put together the dream team of like 6 guys that are this is their whole life,
right,
for the next 2 years while we go get a conviction on a big case. This is like probably the whole office working together. And again, I don't know how big their office is, but I just always wonder, like, this is not Manhattan. This is not a massive pool of, hey, we can select
with giant
guys,
budgets.
These guys have done 1,200 murder trials or murder cases because they're in a big city with a lot of murders. This is a smaller community, presumably a smaller pool of, hey, these guys, this is probably the first case, at least to this level, that they've handled.
Yeah, fair point. No, for sure.
And so I just wonder, like, again, putting myself in their position on a case they've never done this level. There's no way that this level of, I mean, you've got European news outlets following this case closely. I mean, this is
it's a massive case.
I just wonder, for them, my guess is what a relief. to not have to go through this trial and risk any type of theory of acquittal, or I mean, this is 4 convictions.
Yeah, and you're right to your point. All of that is relevant and important for sure. But also, there's a matter of what their jobs are.
Yeah.
And I know our local prosecutors take their jobs very seriously because to some degree our prosecutors are kind of our protectorates of our community.
Yeah.
I mean, they are, so first of all, you guys have to realize too that when the prosecutor gets involved because there's been charges or there's been an arrest made or there's been like a probable cause statement issued by a judge to go get a warrant for an arrest, and that's typically, presented by like maybe a detective.
Yeah.
Okay. So the police department or law enforcement are working things up to say, hey, we think there's been a crime committed, or there has been in the moment a crime committed. So
Yeah.
there's an arrest made. Then that gets presented to the prosecutor's office or the county attorney's office or whoever it is in your local jurisdiction that's in charge of filing claims on behalf of the state or the city, depending on, or the federal government. So a lot of times in criminal defense law, people say, "Oh, well, the attorney's charging this or they're doing this," and it's like there's only one party it's the state or the federal government or the county or the city.
The state of Idaho.
The state of Idaho. I mean, they're the ones pursuing it. So that local office, depending on the size of that office, right? They're in charge of saying, okay, here's the evidence, or here are the charges, here's the probable cause statements, here's everything that we have. Now it's our duty then to then file the appropriate charges, murder, burglary, whatever it may be, right? And then put a degree on that based on what they know, or at least what they believe they know, pursuant to the allegations and the facts they've acquired, or via the police department and detectives and whoever is involved in the case. So I believe that they take their jobs very seriously and are the protectors of our community. That's why I think the Karen retrial is so egregious, and it's gotten so much bigger than I ever thought maybe it even would, because you see kind of the corruption, at least alleged corruption, at so many different levels of the local police department, the prosecutor's office, and then even the judge.
It kind of felt like, wait, why are so many people going after this woman?
Right. And then all their just kind of intertwined like involvement one with another and their history one with another, because it's also another small community, kind of like in Idaho. So it's just kind of wild to see I mean, a quick deep dive or the little tangent on the Karen retrial, a little update for everybody. Allan Jackson his voice is becoming very loud on social media. And he's doing interviews with a lot of different people, and Turtle Boy being one of probably the biggest one, about his feelings of Auntie Bev, Judge Cannoni. And I think I saw him make a comment. He was like, look, the Commonwealth is governed by, and I think he was making something like a joke, tongue in cheek, about the Constitution. I don't know who's not governed by the Constitution. And so then he went on to say, like, so many different things that she was doing. Not one other judge that he's ever been in front of in his entire career would ever have done or ever did do. And he's like, I'm talking thousands of judges. So it kind of goes back to that, like, he's throwing her under the bus, which probably is well deserved. But when the judges are doing their jobs right, hopefully they're weighing these factors, like the prosecutor's discretion to like file charges, the evidence has been brought, all the evidence has been collected by the police department, and then doing his or her job right, making sure the legal standards have been met. And then there's also something, I think, in regards to the family members.
Yeah.
Right? Because
that's always, at least in my thought, that was where this feels like it ran afoul, was if they'd have had a consensus from the family that all 4 families, all 4 victims, were okay with this plea deal, then I think you wouldn't have kind of the outrage and kind of because this is going to spur more conspiracy theories than anything, because it was like, it made it feel like they weren't consulted.
Based on some of the videos that have come out recently, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's only a few days in, but yeah, you're right. Because we've done criminal defense in the past, and we do know a lot of the prosecutors. And one thing that was almost like a common theme, or not a common theme, but it happened a lot, was we would get a response back from a prosecutor when we thought we had like negotiated a pretty good deal for our client. We would get the response from, okay, I got to make sure that my family or the victim's families are okay with it,
or the victim,
or the
in a
victim,
lot of cases,
him or herself, are okay with this plea agreement. And I don't think that's required, but it almost seems like
it's beyond just a courtesy.
It's a courtesy.
But you know what I mean? It felt like it was an obligated courtesy.
Yeah, but they'd almost make it sound like, well, if I can't get my family to sign off on it, we don't have this deal.
And that's where this, I think, has gone off the rails, and the negative publicity, and even the judge kind of brought that up, was, and again, it does not sound like there was consensus on this.
No.
And again, so in without there being a consensus, a lot of people, and I feel like a lot of the TikTok videos I've seen, that's where the outrage has been, is, well, hey, if you didn't get the victims' families on board, how could you do this? And I would just say that that's one of the many factors a prosecutor's faced with when deciding on a plea deal. It's not the only factor. Again, as we've said, it's not even required under the laws as we understand it. But
well, I think there's, like I said, and I agree with you. I think mostly it's strategy, right? Because if the death penalty is on the table and he gets the death penalty, why he wouldn't want that? I mean, everyone has their own like views on mortality. Maybe he's like, I don't want to die, and even though he's admitted to like,
but I killed all these people.
The most heinous act of taking someone's life, especially that way. But maybe he just wanted to guarantee that, and the lawyers were like, "You're cooked, so guarantee this."
Yeah, this at least is the outcome that it's been offered. Now, as your attorneys, we're going to do our part to tell you.
You take this.
Because this is a win, at least in the eyes of the defense attorney, and I've heard this from seasoned trial attorneys that do defense. In their eyes, in a lot of these death penalty cases, a life sentence is, that's at least from a defense perspective, that's a good outcome.
Right, so it's a win.
It's a win.
Right.
And, we talk about what, when you're cooked, what's a win? And in this situation, it sounds like his attorneys were more than willing to convince him to take it, because that's ultimately what happened.
I would say to the family, honestly, I mean, this is the hard part. And a lot of what we do in our civil justice world with injury law and injuries that our clients suffer, and oftentimes are catastrophic and permanent in nature, and you don't come back from that.
Yeah.
I mean, I just met with a client yesterday who broke his neck, and he's like, I'm like this forever.
Yeah, it's never going to change.
I'm like this forever. And so what's justice for me? And I kind of use this analogy. I don't know if it's a good one or not, but it's kind of like Humpty Dumpty, right?
Yeah.
Humpty Dumpty, when he fell off the wall, all the king's men and all the king's horses, they tried to put Humpty back together again.
You can't.
Once you're cracked or permanently damaged, or you've lost a loved one, you don't come back from that.
Well, and we've talked about this too, that the mentality in the civil cases for wrongful death is the same way. Is we're looking at this from a legal perspective. I'd love to present this case to a jury. I think, a jury would be very favorable of how this would go, but that's not the only factor, even in our civil cases. And you had to sit in the room with those families, because I know we talk about this a lot, where you've had to say, like, look, I'm ready. Is the attorney from the legal side like, let's go? But the consideration of, can you sit through that type of trial? Are you ready to be a witness and talk about your loved one that's now been passed away in our civil justice system, at least wrongfully, and wrongful death? And it seems like in our last one of the last ones we did, the answer was no. I don't think the family could have gone through that. I don't think either parent would have been able to proceed.
I agree with you. And so that kind of begs then the analysis and of really the difference between like a legal good result versus a fair and just result.
Yeah.
And just is subjective, but we do have opinions on what's a good legal result versus what's a fair result.
Yeah.
And oftentimes a good legal result is not synonymous with a good, fair, and just result.
Yeah.
And so I say that because, for example, in the Kohberger case and a lot of cases that we deal with, even if I think it's the Conclave family, is that who's not happy with this? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Conclave.
Kaylee Gonzalez family's outraged.
Yeah. Oh, Gonzalez. Is it Kaylee Gonzalez? No. It's Conclave's, right? Her last name?
It might be both of them.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's her family that's... The only thing I would say to them is the death penalty, because I think her dad was like, it's daycare. He's going to daycare. I don't know if it's like daycare, but I know what he's trying to say, and as a dad, I can appreciate what he's trying to say. But even if the death penalty were on the table, and let's say he was given the death penalty, one, it's going to take a long time. There's going to be appeals.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long process, whether he actually gets it and gets there or not. Because just because he's been sentenced to death doesn't mean it happens like tomorrow. And then, so that's a process. And then two, and I think most importantly, it's never going to bring their daughter back. So an eye for an eye, okay, I get it, I guess, right? But that result's not going to bring her back. So when we're talking about legal strategy, it's a good legal result. It may not be a fair result, but it's a good legal result. And I think that's what the other families are trying to say. We accept it, we approve it because it's a good legal result because nothing's going to bring our children back.
The average death row time is 17 years on one.
17 years.
So it's not like
this
is a fast process. And then
so
what if something does get overturned on appeals? Let me tell you, evidence is a lot harder to present to a jury 15 years later.
So you eliminate that risk, which again, legal result versus fair result, but you eliminate that risk. You guarantee the convictions, you guarantee the life sentences, and regardless of the result, nothing brings back your child or nothing's going to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And that's the hard part. And that's on the flip side of all that. That's why when we ask you people, juries, potential jurors for money, that's why money in our civil justice world for injury law is so important, because how do you compensate for a life, or how do you put Humpty Dumpty back together again? How do you compensate for permanency? Maybe a permanent limp or a permanent drop foot or a permanent headache or memory fog or whatever the injury might be. How do you compensate for that? And in our world, it has to be money. And in this criminal defense world with Kohberger, it has to be jail and or death, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you're as a parent, I can't imagine that. I can't imagine what those parents are going through. Well, nothing that obviously no result, legal, fair, just, or whatever you might want to describe it, is going to bring them back.
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
And like I said, I think so. Fair result, I can never say that. But legal fair result, this is probably this is kind of what we expected probably at some point to be offered.
Well, I think if anyone watching this case and kind of watching on social media and seeing like DNA on the knife sheath, the car driving away, all the different things leading up to the deaths, the searches. I think we had a comment once in one of our posts about, well, just because he searched about like committing murder and different things doesn't mean he's a murderer. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not, weren't saying that. But you add all the kind of
when you add all of those together,
and yeah, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that kind of helps support the theory that he was there that morning. He did show up. He did drive away. And then when there's DNA on the knife sheath that he left behind, that was also okay. That puts everything together. And I think there was enough evidence, obviously, for the defense lawyers to say, take this deal.
Now, do you think this commenter, I just want to throw this out there, do you think they were a little bit like, well, I search serial killers all the time,
I don't know, maybe.
I love that show, How to Get Away with Murder. Like,
it's a good show. That was a good show.
You know what I mean? Do you think they were feeling a little guilty? Like, hey, wait a second. That's not a good enough reason, because they were feeling the heat a little bit.
The internet's a crazy place. Let's be so for real. The internet's a crazy place. And the comments that come through on the Karen Reed trial, on the Kohberger trial, on P. Diddy, you just saw that he was found not guilty. And we're going to do another podcast on that. It's an interesting place to find various perspectives.
Yeah.
And I think to some degree, I don't know if our jobs have gotten easier or significantly more difficult on understanding what a jury may do in a civil injury case.
Yeah.
Because the perspectives and all the comments are so out there and random.
I live for the comment section.
Well, everyone does. Right? It's like the best. It's like grab your popcorn and just read comments. It's just wild.
But then you wonder if that's really how they would be on a jury versus their online
persona
Yeah.
behind no one seeing you. Yeah, for sure. That's a great point. That's a great
Yeah.
point. So, anyways, it's really super interesting. To wrap it up, I really do believe it's strategy over accountability. In fact, I think there's reports that when he came in and walked into court and pled guilty to those charges, he didn't even look at his own family. He didn't look at any of the victims. He didn't look like any sort of remorse in any way.
Here's what they should have done. I'm going to throw this out there. When you offer that, you also need a signed confession. Within 30 days, you have to tell us exactly how you did it.
Or maybe even why.
Now, I know we can't force that under the Fifth Amendment, but
it would be interesting.
That would have been the closure for the families probably wanted, is not just admitting guilt, because that's what he's done. He's pled guilty, and the judge is very thorough on that, but get the signed confession. Then the families probably would have been
maybe
better with it. Like, hey, then I actually heard it from him admitting what he did.
In cases, there are times where prosecutors have required a letter of an apology.
Yeah.
Or some statement, right, to the family or to the victim. So that probably would have been a reasonable ask.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it was strategy. It was a guaranteed result. I think it's good for the local prosecutor's office. They probably would have been overburdened, and it would have been a tremendous burden on that entire office.
I agree.
And courtroom and all the things. I mean, that's what they're paid for. It's their jobs, but still.
Well, it's a lot of taxpayer money.
And a lot of taxpayer money, which I think is a big complaint in the whole Karen Reed thing, too. Like a 30-day trial on that.
Yeah,
two times.
We can be outraged at that, but then at the same time, then we have to be okay with the state saying, well, this plea deal also saves some money, because I've also heard that it's a lot more expensive to have someone on death row as opposed to life in prison. Even though
also true, yeah.
The death row inmates and the appeals costs and everything else, when you add all that up, it's more expensive than having someone just in a life sentence.
Yeah, I agree with that. So anyways, you guys comment, please leave us your thoughts. I'm curious to hear what you have to think. Strategy, legal strategy, or accountability, the Kohberger plea deal. Do you think he feels bad at all? Do you think he has any remorse? Do you think he took the deal because he just felt bad, or he just was self-preservation? So let us know. Please subscribe, share, and follow us on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all the different things. And we appreciate your support. Until next time, everybody, be safe, leave early, slow down, and we'll see you next time.